Now let's take a look at what he wrote about me. My words are a bit more serious. What he means is his hemorrhoid wound serious or not? Although he also experiences urinary leakage in two areas, which area is more severe? Is it the triangular area in the pelvic floor or the scattered area? For him, the problem is more severe in the scattered area. He is unmarried and has never had children, so he feels this is abnormal. But don't think that giving birth necessarily leads to leakage. Who says you must have urinary leakage after childbirth? That's not the case. He can't do jumping movements, so we do exercises. How is your core? How is your stability? Is your stability okay? Because he is a coach. How many years have you been a coach? Been a coach for half a year. Then you're quite talented to have trained to this level in just half a year. Give me a chair. How long did you wear it? He said he used to wear a lumbar support belt for a few months, the wide kind, for several months. Did you have hemorrhoids before you started wearing the belt? You didn't have them before wearing the belt. Then maybe wearing the belt helped you. Hey, put your feet up on it. Hey, lie down. Put your feet up and then lift your whole hips up. Yes. Don't put too much pressure on your cervical spine. Like this. 82. Get ready and then gently exhale. Let me see if you can control it without tightening up. Stop. The main thing is you can only maintain less than 1 millimeter because his abs are too well trained, so he can't control it. He habitually uses his abs. Slower, you're doing it too fast and putting too much pressure. This time you maintained it well. Very good. If this side gets even 1 millimeter smaller, it means your abs are working more than your pelvic floor muscles, and then it's meaningless. That's better. Even slower, even slower. Yes. All right, that's good. Do you remember, was her urinary incontinence severe or not? And then let me tell you, in this position, the entire triangular area of the pelvic floor muscles is involved. As long as she can maintain it and the muscle fibers can come up. But between these two areas, which one do you think is more involved? Why is it the fan-shaped area and why the triangular area? The force is directed downward toward the ground and his pelvic floor muscles are here. Okay, let me tell you, I'm just using this movement to check whether his pelvic floor muscles can be activated. But in his case, it's not really suitable to do this in this position. Do you know why? Because he's doing a hip extension, he's lifting his hips up, so all the muscles responsible for supporting the pelvis are tightened, the gluteus maximus, medius and minimus, all of them. After tightening, what happens? It restricts the muscles at the back. The contraction of the fan-shaped area of the pelvic floor muscles because the outer muscles are too strong. So at this time, what you're activating more is the triangular area. Now, why did I have that girl yesterday after training her in this position immediately do other exercises? Because yesterday, her issue was urinary leakage, not hemorrhoids. This case is hemorrhoids, not urinary leakage. So in this position, training mainly targets the triangular area, allowing it to exert force more effectively. Therefore, this position is good for improving urinary leakage, but it's not for treating hemorrhoids. It will restrict the contraction of the fan-shaped area of the pelvic floor muscles. So you need to find a way to let it activate the pelvic floor more, and then have the triangular area of the pelvic floor muscles contract a bit. If both areas are involved, then you don't need to suppress anything. You can just train the whole area. So is it better for him to lift his legs or not lift his legs? If you want to target his posterior pelvic floor area, then you shouldn't let him lift his legs high or raise his hips, because if he does that, you won't be able to train that area. He'll end up using his stronger muscles instead. People naturally tend to use their stronger muscles. When doing this movement, his gluteus maximus, medius, and minimus are definitely stronger than his pelvic floor muscles, and his erector spinae are definitely stronger than his pelvic floor as well. So, if you don't control for that, he'll especially rely on his stronger muscles. In this situation, I have him stay in this position. Why did I demonstrate on one person yesterday and also help another? Because the two of them represent two different groups of people. One is someone with prolapse and the other is someone with urinary incontinence. Although he also has issues, he said his hemorrhoids are severe, to the extent that the doctor recommended surgery. So if I want him to engage his posterior muscles more, hey, if I clamp like this, am I restraining it? Can you understand what I'm doing from the front? Don't let him use too much force. I just want him to keep it from falling. That's enough, because this way I'm restraining it. The front helps the back exert more force. What I just did was to restrain it. The back helps the front exert force. Now, if he has problems with both the front and the back, then I don't need to add anything at all. You get it, right? Once you open this up, then release the force like this. So basically, when he lies down like this, it will be a bit better than when you lie down. Listen to me. In a moment, after you finish, I'll have you stand on top. Let's see if you can stay standing up there. So your balance is actually pretty good. That's fine. But after you stand on it, I'll turn the switch on and off. Once it's on, it'll keep shaking like this. And as long as you don't fall off, that's good enough. However, the premise is that after you finish, when I tell you to stop, don't keep using the machine. Then after you get up at an angle, just stand on top and stay still and keep standing there until you catch your breath. Okay, take a deep breath. All right. Okay. Just don't hold your breath. All right, got it. You're going to kill me. I'm letting go now. Hold on tight. What is the purpose of me doing this? I want him, during the exhalation process, to be able to engage even when the ventilator isn't involved. You can think of it as moving from the first floor to the second floor. Why not go straight from the basement to the first floor? Because your pelvic floor, no matter when, is never at the very bottom. As long as you move from lying in bed to standing on the ground, that's the case. And when you get up from a chair, your pelvic floor is never on the first floor. It automatically rises up. Yesterday, we talked about these functions. These functions switch even faster than you do. What does that mean? For example, when you switch roles from work to home, there's a certain distance or process in between. But for them, that's not the case. Why do I say that? For example, whether it's our diaphragm or our pelvic floor, when you walk, if you're walking and suddenly by accident you fall into the river in front of you, the water rushes in immediately. You wouldn't spend a minute thinking, hey, what just happened? No, the moment you fall into the water, you instantly close your mouth. Your diaphragm immediately stops functioning. You instantly contract and you immediately start to hold your breath. So their reaction time is less than a second, just a fraction of a second. This is the switch between breathing and stabilization in the pelvic floor and diaphragm, and it's an automated process controlled by the brain. There is no process of conscious thought in between. It's a direct transformation. For example, when I'm lying on the bed, practicing breathing, at that moment, the exhalation function of your pelvic floor muscles is at its best because there's no need for any stabilization. The support from behind is so great. So when I get up from the bed in an instant, without you having to command it, it automatically lifts up. That's because the area of support has become smaller. This whole process is run automatically by your brain, so you don't need to consciously think about your pelvic floor muscles. That's why just now, when I went from lying on the bed to standing up, it will automatically go from the second floor to the third floor. If the function of his feet is not good, it will rise even higher. So you often hear about various types of hypertonicity in the pelvic floor muscles. After you help release it through manual therapy, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do you know why? It's because other areas are unstable, so the pelvic floor must maintain high tension. Some people have short high tension, others have lengthened high tension. Do you know why some people always have lengthened hypertonicity? It's because their diaphragm never descends, yet they do a lot of breathing exercises. He keeps pushing his diaphragm downwards, so he remains in a state of lengthened hypertonicity. Simply addressing the tension alone is useless because you don't know where this tension is coming from. Some people have pelvic instability due to sacroiliac joint separation, or their distal joints are severely misaligned, and then they have pronated feet. Their gluteus medius and minimus are also weak. During standing, their entire pelvis is unstable, so at this point, the pelvic floor muscles have to contract even tighter, trying to stabilize things. But if they can't stabilize, what happens? They just keep contracting. If I keep contracting, of course, there will be hypertonicity. So for this kind of situation, as long as you stabilize the pelvis, the tension will decrease. This kind of lengthened hypertonicity is because there's too much pressure from above. If you relieve that pressure, there's no need for such high tension. So tension and muscle tightness can actually be considered the same thing. That's why for some cases of hypertonicity, after you extend the fingers and use manual techniques, it works. But what about those who have torn during childbirth? Their fine motor control is lost and everything is just stuck together. This method is effective. But for someone who hasn't given birth and develops hemorrhoids from training, when they go to the hospital for a checkup, it turns out to be hypertonicity. This hypertonicity has nothing to do with childbirth. So when you do repeated relaxation exercises, it only provides temporary relief. It's like when your lower back feels sore or painful and the muscles in your lower back are tense. Relaxing them only helps for a short while. That's because you don't know where this tension comes from, whether the muscle is lengthened or shortened. So when you get your report from the hospital, it always just says pelvic floor hypertonicity. But no one explains how this hypertonicity develops. For postpartum cases, it's understandable because of the damage during childbirth. But if a normal man also has hypertonicity, what then? So you need to look at whether it's due to tightness or something else. Let me give you a suggestion. How about using one finger? As for this, what am I asking him to do? I'm asking him to use his pelvic floor muscles to switch from the breathing function within 5 seconds, because I want to observe how quickly he can activate them from a relaxed state. If he can activate them in 3 seconds, then it's within 3 seconds. If it's 2 seconds, then I want him to switch his pelvic floor muscles from the breathing function to the stabilizing function within 2 seconds. This function is what supports the internal organs and prevents prolapse. It's the stabilizing and supporting function of the pelvic floor muscles, not the exhalation function. What we're training here is the transition between these functions. You can think of all the support for the internal organs. If the pelvic floor muscles, you can imagine them going on strike. You can't have them always supporting the organs during every activity or while exhaling because they simply can't hold on that way. So you must let them perform their organ supporting function. Supporting the organs is like my legs. No matter how long they are, even if they're 50 centimeters, when my brain tells me to pick up this bottle of water and drink, I only need to use about 2 Jin of force to accomplish it. This has nothing to do with the size or bulk of my leg muscles because this task doesn't require exerting that much force. This is the logic behind such a simple movement. Let me pick one up first. Their problems are different. If he uses it, he won't be able to train what I'm talking about. You're just listening in vain. Yesterday's case was urinary leakage. This one is hemorrhoids, and these hemorrhoids are even more severe. So since the hemorrhoids are more serious, I need to train the area of the perineum. The movement we did yesterday involved lifting his buttocks, but that doesn't train his perineal area, or the perineal area gets restricted. This is too difficult for him. Now, after he finishes the exercise, I have him stand still and wait. Once he can stand steadily, then I let him move. This case is more severe than the previous one. This one requires surgery, while the other does not. Can you hear me? Because he said he has good stability. So, under normal circumstances, if he were a regular member, what would I have him do? I'd have him go from lying down to standing up immediately, then from standing up to lifting his leg, and then from lifting his leg to closing his eyes and staying still. Since he's a coach and claims his balance is good, I skipped those steps and had him stand directly on this platform. Plus, this platform vibrates and shakes, which will further activate his pelvic floor muscles. So what happened? He said his balance was fine, but in reality it wasn't. He couldn't stand steadily. If he couldn't stand, I would support him because there are 2 types of force here. One is the force of imbalance and the other is the force of vibration. So I naturally let him stand on the ground. He only had the force of imbalance but without the force of vibration. When all the small muscles are slightly shaking and trembling, their activation is greater than that of the large muscles. That's why the power plate was invented, to train these muscles on it. All right, get up now, please. Come, give me a finger, just one finger. Give me your finger. I'm giving you support, but I just turned off the switch earlier. It's okay, no problem. I'll just save some time this way. You just sit here, sit down, and then stand up. Why did I choose him for the procedure? Because he's a doctor, and when he's told he needs surgery, he doesn't want to have it. When we see someone who needs surgery, if we can help them avoid it through these exercises, that's great. It's okay if you're having a bit of a flare-up right now. Are you a combination of internal and external treatment, or which one? Your report says external, right? If you want your chest muscles not to exert force, you have to hold it the right way like this. Hold it tight. That means you just need to open up the area between the upper thoracic vertebrae between T2 and T6, and that's enough to release it. This way, those muscles won't be able to exert force. So the principle of training is like this. Many coaches have a one-track mind. If a muscle is tense, they think about how to relax that muscle before training it. But actually, there's a better way. During training, you can find a way to prevent that muscle from exerting force. This way, the muscles you want to activate will be able to do so. Don't always think about just relaxing or exhausting the muscle. You can also consider using your willpower. There are many ways to use intention. One is to shorten it, and the other is to activate it. With this kind of training, the more you practice, the better your performance and function will become. Don't hold your breath and don't stand on top of anything. Just stand on one leg directly, that's enough. stand on one leg so that it looks like a 90-degree angle. All right, focus your eyes. Okay, switch legs. So, throughout the whole process, the only thing you really need to pay attention to is not to hold your breath. Why? Because once you hold your breath, your pelvic floor muscles will weaken. When you're sitting down, it's easier to feel your pelvic floor muscles, and then when you can stand up like this, if your client is sitting on a chair and their pelvic floor muscles are activated, but when they stand up, they're unstable, then you should never have them do exercises like holding dumbbells and jumping because they're not ready for that yet. If you can't even stand steadily, how can you expect to hold weights like that? Just have them walk forward directly. This way their stride will naturally lengthen. So I need them to first be able to stand steadily on both sides and be stable on each leg. Only then can they start doing marching steps. And only after that can they do high knee lifts. Right now their ability isn't very strong yet. If their ability improves, then next I'll have them do brisk walking or marching steps. If they can manage that, then I'll let them do high knee lifts. At that point, their pelvic floor muscles will be able to support their rectum and help improve their fat distribution. Finally, what I want to see is that they can balance on each leg for 10 seconds. Then you can move on to the next exercise, and I won't need to keep doing this. Hold the child close to your chest. That's right. I'm just giving you some practical advice because I've seen a lot of cases. So for members, as soon as I see the situation, I know whether I need to provide more support or not. Try to lift it a bit higher. 19, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and hey there. Are you counting from 0 to 3? In reality, you'll notice that when you try to have them stabilize their pelvic organs, they're not yet able to accomplish this task. So their large surface muscles are used more, but their core stabilizing muscles aren't functioning well. If they can't even engage their pelvic muscles to maintain stability, then during exercise, their internal organs won't be supported. As the intensity of their training increases, the risk of their prolapse recurring also rises. In this situation, you need to have them practice for a period of time first, and then when is that? For example, when I stand up from a chair without doing anything else, my pelvic floor muscles will activate. If I lift one leg, my pelvic floor muscles will activate again. So when you're really training the pelvic floor muscles, it's before you do single leg support, when your hips are supported by a larger contact area. At this time, it's easier to engage the pelvic floor muscles. Once you've activated them, stand up and see how long you can maintain it. Training the pelvic floor muscles this way is much more effective than doing single leg support with exhalation and pelvic lifts. Can you tell the difference between these two movements? The first one is that in all the typical pelvic floor exercises, you stand like this in a semi-squat position and then exhale and lift. But what am I really trying to say? What I want to say is, as long as you go from sitting in a chair to standing up, the function of your pelvic floor muscles during exhalation has already weakened, right? Because at this moment, it needs to stabilize you. This is its programmed automatic function. Then if you lift one leg and then you exhale, lift and contract. So what are you actually training? You're training the abdominal muscles. In Pilates, there's a standing posture, right? If you exhale and lift your pelvic floor like this, you're doing it wrong because at this point, your base of support is even smaller. So your exhalation ability is even greater. What it needs to do more is to jump in and maintain stability. When it's stabilizing, you're forcing it. That is to say, when stabilizing, it uses 30% of its strength, but when you exhale, it only uses 10% of its strength. So you make it give up that 30% and only use that 10%. At this point, it becomes even less able to exert force. It's like when I'm doing a pull and you're always whispering in my ear, giving me a cue. Use the strength you use to pick up water to do the pull. Use the strength you use to pick up water. Do you hear me? At this moment, if you increase the exhalation, you're actually making it use even less strength to do this kind of work, and you're also giving it a strong directive. That's why I say, if you don't choose the right training movements, when you're training the pelvic floor muscles and you force exhalation during stabilization, you'll end up making the member's pelvic floor muscles weaker and weaker. In most cases, when the core is just supporting, if you make them exhale, their sensation actually gets worse because this is not the time for exhalation. At this moment, it's not supposed to be exhaling. Its function is to stabilize. So if you develop the exhalation function in this state, it's equivalent to suppressing its stabilizing function in this state and inhibiting its ability to support internal organs in this state. Forcing it to exhale is like making me do a deadlift, but insisting that I only use the strength needed to lift a bottle of water. So you absolutely shouldn't force your clients to exhale when doing single leg support with rotation. You can have them engage their core, but you can't have them exhale because you don't If you ask them to engage their pelvic floor even more, they might actually drop from the fourth floor to the second floor because they're using even less strength. That's why so many office workers never had any issues before, but after training Pilates for half a year just to improve their figure, they end up developing hemorrhoids. Their pelvic floor wasn't that strong to begin with, and then you train their pelvic floor's stabilizing function into an exhalation function. That's why when Pilates is introduced into commercial gyms for the general public, people are even more likely to develop hemorrhoids. Do you know why? There are coaches at Luke who don't tell their clients when squatting to engage their pelvic floor while exhaling, or when bench pressing to engage their pelvic floor while exhaling. Because they give fewer such instructions, their clients don't get injured as quickly. They're just pressing their diaphragm downward. But whenever you have them do any kind of instability training, the more you tell them to tighten their pelvic floor, the more they'll use exhalation to contract their pelvic floor, because that's the only way they know how. So in the shortest time, you'll end up ruining their perfectly good pelvic floor muscles. If you insist on training your pelvic floor muscles while doing squats, it's not about exhaling and lifting your pelvic floor after you've shouldered the barbell, holding it tight, locking it in, and then inhaling before squatting down. That's not how it works, because when you're standing up and holding that weight, your pelvic floor muscles no longer have the function of exhaling. In other words, when you're holding the barbell and you try to exhale and lift your pelvic floor, you're sacrificing its stabilizing function just to make it exhale. So let me tell you how to really train your pelvic floor muscles. Set up a squat rack and get a chair. In this position, exhale and lift your pelvic floor after you've finished lifting it. Then you stand up, shoulder the barbell, and squat. At this point, your pelvic floor muscles will lift even higher. It's not about shouldering the barbell, exhaling, tightening your pelvic floor, clenching everything, and then squatting like that. That's just fooling yourself. When your body is carrying such a heavy barbell, the greater the load, the more your pelvic floor muscles have to contract to support your internal organs and maintain stability. So at that moment, you can't even lift your pelvic floor as you exhale. What you need to train is the ability to do it, like being able to brisk walk or do high knees, so that your pelvic floor can immediately respond and relieve itself. Otherwise, it will still hurt and still won't be able to hold things in simply because it's too weak. That's why surgery is necessary, because right now, he still doesn't have that ability. If you don't have that ability yet, then don't close your eyes for now. Keep your eyes open. Let's see if you can handle sitting like this. All right, get up. Lift it up, hold it up. You'll notice that every time he stands up, he always lifts his left leg first, right? Because his right leg is more stable. That's good. Next, let me adjust your direction. Sit for a while, let your belly expand, then exhale, and when I tell you to stop, you stop. Stand up, but don't do single leg support. Hold this. Do a brisk walk over to teacher by, then walk back. I noticed you pulled your stomach in. When I tell you to stop, don't inhale or exhale. Just hold your breath. After picking it up, do the shoulder walk. For the shoulder walk, I only have one requirement after you stabilize yourself on this side. After you stabilize yourself on this side, then step forward like this. Step forward like this and keep walking until you can't hold your breath any longer. Go ahead. Basically, what I'm demonstrating for you is how I conduct a personal training session for a member who has already been told they need surgery for hemorrhoids. Essentially, I'm showing you how I do a personal training session. You can stop. When supporting with your left leg, don't land so quickly. Otherwise, you mainly won't be able to hold it. Right? If you breathe and then do it, it won't be effective. Because did you notice that when he's supporting with his left leg, he either kneels down or quickly lands? His left leg isn't bearing any weight. What does it mean when the left leg bears weight? It means the left pelvic floor muscles are contracting, and it also represents the inflation of the right lung. The pelvic floor muscles correspond to the gluteal side, and breathing corresponds to the opposite side. So it means his left pelvic floor muscles are weaker. He can't contract his left pelvic floor muscles. Well, if he can make it to teacher by, that's already a success. Then after you succeed, come back and we'll test you. Just now, you couldn't jump, right? I'll have you try jumping and see. Come on. When you're supporting with your left leg, don't drop down so quickly. That's good. When I'm training members like this, sometimes I watch the stopwatch. What am I looking at? I'm checking how long their leg can stay in the air. What is air time? For example, when I'm supporting myself with my right leg, how many seconds does my left leg stay in the air? Then when my left leg is supporting, how many seconds does my right leg stay in the air? I use this to determine whether their leg can bear weight. Whether it can bear weight determines whether they can breathe properly. Let me ask you, when you're sitting in a chair, you told me that just sitting still hurts a bit. How about when you're training? Does the pain get worse? No, did it get any better? If it got better, would you dare, after you finish exhaling in a bit, to hold this and right where you are, face everyone and do small, gentle jumps like this? But I want you to hold the pressure. For the last movement, bring that over. Not all hemorrhoids can be improved through exercise rehabilitation. If it has already developed into an anal fistula, some cases must be treated with surgery. Breathe the same way as before, but after you finish breathing, bend over to pick this up and keep jumping until you run out of breath. Do you need to specify how many jumps the members should do? You can't specify it because you don't know how long they can hold their breath. Okay, take a break. I'm done practicing. Now walk around a bit. How do you feel? Be honest, it hurt a bit this morning, but now it doesn't hurt as much. To check if it still hurts, he touches it with his hand to see if there's still any sensation. All right, leave your clothes here. Weren't you afraid to jump before? If I ask you to jump like this, are you still afraid? Just give it a try. Come on, jump a bit higher like you're going for a rebound. Is it okay now? No, it's not. That feeling of it about to fall off is gone now. So the troublesome part here is that I always need to make some progress, but during the process of progressing, if he can't complete the previous regression step, I can't move forward. For example, if I ask him to stand up from a chair and support himself on one leg, he can't even stand steadily. So this person simply can't walk because walking is always a transition of single leg support. Sometimes the left leg supports while the right leg steps forward, and sometimes the right leg supports while the left leg steps forward. If you can't stand steadily on one leg, you simply can't walk. In other words, you can think of it as when he walks, his pelvic floor muscles are unable to support his internal organs because he can't even stand steadily like this. So I have to make sure he can stand steadily first and only then let him walk. Once he can walk steadily, then I can let him try jumping, and only when he can jump like this can we move forward. Also, when he holds his breath like this, let me tell you, what is the reaction of someone with weak pelvic floor muscles? Their reaction isn't that their muscles are weak, it's that they can't hold their breath. Do you know why they can't hold their breath? Because the pelvic floor muscles don't have this ability. The surrounding receptors send this signal to the brain, giving feedback that they can't hold on anymore. The brain then makes you stop this activity. So it's not that their breathing is poor, it's that their pelvic floor muscle endurance has run out. Once you understand this, the main content you'll be learning in this course is now laid out on the table.